I'll never forget that summer day 3 years ago when everything changed at my grandparents' farm. As a local sheriff's deputy, I've seen my share of missing person cases, but nothing prepared me for what happened to the Morrison twins, Emma and Lily, two bright 7-year-old girls who vanished without a trace during what should have been a perfect family vacation. The girls had been staying with their grandparents, Martha and Harold Morrison, at their sprawling cattle ranch just outside our small town. It was the kind of place where children could run free, explore barn lofts, and chase chickens without a care in the world. Martha had called us frantically that evening, her voice trembling as she explained that the twins had been playing near the old corral after lunch and simply never came back for dinner. When I arrived at the Morrison farm, the scene was chaotic. Family members were calling the girls' names across the property, flashlights cutting through the growing darkness. The grandparents looked devastated, Martha wringing her hands while Harold stood stoically, his weathered face etched with worry. The twins' parents, Sarah and Michael, had driven 4 hours from the city and were beside themselves with panic. We immediately organized search teams, covering every inch of the 200-acre property. The old corral where the girls had last been seen was surrounded by open pastures, a small creek, and dense woods that seemed to swallow our flashlight beams. We found their matching pink sandals by the water's edge, but nothing else. No footprints in the soft mud, no torn clothing caught on branches, no signs of struggle. It was as if Emma and Lily had simply evaporated into thin air. That first night stretched endlessly as we expanded our search radius. Volunteers from town joined professional search and rescue teams, and by dawn, we had nearly 100 people combing through fields, forests, and abandoned buildings. The local news picked up the story, and soon the Morrison farm was swarming with reporters and concerned citizens. Despite all our efforts, we found absolutely nothing. 2 little girls had vanished completely, leaving behind only those tiny pink sandals and a mystery that would haunt our community for years to come. The days following the disappearance blurred together in a haze of interviews, evidence collection, and increasingly desperate searches. As the lead investigator, I found myself consumed by every detail, every possible lead, every theory that might explain what happened to Emma and Lily Morrison. We interviewed everyone who had been at the farm that day. The grandparents had been napping in the house, exhausted from helping with the morning chores. A neighbor, Tom Bradley, had been fixing fence posts about a quarter-mile away and remembered seeing the girls playing around noon. The mail carrier, Mrs. Chen, had delivered packages around 2 p.m. and noticed nothing unusual. Every alibi checked out, every story remained consistent through multiple interviews. The physical evidence was frustratingly minimal. Those pink sandals by the creek showed no signs of violence, and the forensic team found no blood, no DNA evidence, no indication of foul play. The creek itself was shallow and slow-moving, easily searched by divers who found nothing but rocks and old farming equipment. We brought in cadaver dogs who showed no interest in any particular area of the property. Theories abounded, each more heartbreaking than the last. Had the girls wandered into the woods and become lost? The search teams had covered miles of forest with no trace. Had they fallen into the creek and been swept downstream? The water was too shallow and slow for that to be possible. Had someone taken them? There was no evidence of strangers on the property, no suspicious vehicles seen in the area. The case began to take its toll on everyone involved. The Morrison family was shattered, the grandparents aging visibly under the weight of guilt and grief. The community rallied around them, organizing fundraisers and maintaining search efforts, but as weeks turned to months, hope began to fade. The media attention gradually shifted to other stories, and the daily searches became weekly, then monthly remembrances. I refused to give up, spending countless off-duty hours reviewing case files, re-interviewing witnesses, and walking the property. Something had happened to those girls, and someone, somewhere, knew what it was. The answer was out there, waiting to be discovered, and I was determined to find it no matter how long it took. 3 years had passed since Emma and Lily Morrison vanished, but the case never truly left my mind. I'd been promoted to detective, partly due to my relentless work on missing persons cases, but the twin girls' disappearance remained the one that got away, the unsolved mystery that haunted my dreams and drove me to become better at my job. The Morrison family had never fully recovered. Sarah and Michael divorced 2 years after the disappearance, the strain of their loss and the unanswered questions tearing their marriage apart. Sarah moved across the country, unable to bear living in the same state where her daughters had vanished. Michael stayed local, visiting the farm regularly, still hoping for answers that seemed increasingly unlikely to come. Martha and Harold Morrison had aged dramatically. The once vibrant woman who had baked cookies for every church fundraiser now rarely left her house. Harold continued working the farm, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. The cattle operation had been scaled back significantly, and much of the property stood unused, slowly returning to wild grassland. The old corral where the girls had last been seen had become an unofficial memorial. Visitors regularly left flowers, stuffed animals, and prayer cards along the fence posts. The community had never forgotten Emma and Lily, and their disappearance had changed how we all thought about safety and security in our small town. I made it a point to visit the Morrison farm every few months, checking in on the grandparents and walking the property with fresh eyes. Sometimes I'd bring new officers with me, hoping that someone might notice something I'd missed. The case files had grown thick with reports, photographs, and interview transcripts, but they all led to the same frustrating conclusion. 2 little girls had simply vanished without explanation. Other cases had come and gone, and I'd successfully solved several missing persons investigations, but none brought the satisfaction I was looking for. Each solved case only reminded me of the one that remained open, the one that had started my obsession with bringing missing people home to their families. Local psychics and amateur investigators occasionally contacted me with tips and theories, most of which proved worthless. A few true crime podcasters had featured the case, bringing renewed public interest but no new leads. The FBI had been involved initially but had eventually moved on to other priorities when no federal crimes could be established. Last Tuesday morning changed everything. I was having coffee at the station when my phone rang. It was Harold Morrison, his voice shaky but urgent. "Detective, you need to come out here right away. We found something." I raced to the farm, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread. When I arrived, I found Harold standing near the old corral with a German shepherd I didn't recognize. The dog was pacing nervously, whining and pawing at a specific spot about 50 yards from where we'd found the girl's sandals 3 years ago. "This is Rex," Harold explained. "Belongs to my neighbor's son, Jake. He's been training him for search and rescue work. Jake brought him over to help me look for a missing calf yesterday, and Rex started acting strange right here. He won't stop digging at this spot." I knelt down where the dog was indicating and immediately noticed something unusual. The ground here was slightly sunken, and the grass grew differently than in the surrounding area. It was subtle, the kind of detail that might not be obvious unless you were looking for it, but my trained eye recognized the signs of disturbed earth. "Harold, I need you to call Martha and ask her to stay in the house. Then I need you to go inside too. I'm calling for backup and the forensic team." Within an hour, the Morrison farm was once again bustling with official activity. The forensic team carefully marked off the area and began the painstaking process of excavation. Using hand tools and brushes, they slowly removed layers of soil while Rex continued to pace anxiously at the perimeter. 3 feet down, they found the first piece of evidence, a small, tarnished silver bracelet with tiny heart charms. Martha Morrison had given matching bracelets to the twins for their 7th birthday, just months before their disappearance. My hands trembled as I bagged the evidence, knowing that we were finally, after 3 long years, getting answers. The excavation continued methodically. 4 feet down, they found fabric remnants that appeared to be from children's clothing. 5 feet down, they uncovered something that made my blood run cold. 2 small wooden boxes, each about the size of a shoebox, buried side by side in the earth. The forensic team photographed everything in place before carefully lifting the boxes. They were simple pine construction, the kind that might be used for storing keepsakes or small tools. But what they contained would answer the questions that had plagued us for 3 years and reveal a truth more shocking than any of us could have imagined. The contents of those wooden boxes shattered everything we thought we knew about the Morrison twins' disappearance. Inside each box, wrapped carefully in plastic, were not the remains we expected to find, but something far more disturbing. Detailed journals, photographs, and personal items that revealed the girls had been alive for months after their supposed disappearance. The journals were written in a child's handwriting, documenting days spent in what appeared to be an underground shelter. The entries described a nice man, who brought them food and games, who told them their family thought they were dead and that they could never go home. The photographs showed the girls in what looked like a furnished basement room, playing with toys, eating meals, and appearing surprisingly well cared for despite their captivity. But the most shocking revelation came from the final journal entries and a letter found in Lily's box. The girls had discovered that their captor was planning to move them to a different location, somewhere far away where they would never be found. In their 7-year-old wisdom, they had made a devastating decision. They chose to end their own lives rather than face an uncertain future separated from their family forever. The letter, written in Emma's careful handwriting, was heartbreaking. "We love Mommy and Daddy and Grandma and Grandpa. We want to go home, but the man says we can't ever. We don't want to go far away. We want to stay close to home. We found the pills in his bag. We're going to go to sleep and dream about home." The forensic analysis revealed that the girls had died from an overdose of sedatives, likely medication their captor had been using to keep them compliant. They had been dead for over 2 years, buried in those boxes by someone who had genuinely cared for them in his twisted way, someone who had been grief-stricken by their deaths. The investigation that followed was swift and decisive. DNA evidence on the boxes and items led US to Jake Morrison, Harold's own nephew, a quiet man in his 30s who lived alone on a small property adjacent to the farm. Jake had constructed an elaborate underground shelter on his land, complete with furnishings and supplies for long-term habitation. When we arrested Jake, he confessed immediately. He had been watching the girls play that day 3 years ago and had impulsively decided to save them from what he perceived as an uncaring world. He had genuinely believed he was protecting them, providing them with a safe space away from the dangers of modern life. When they died, he had been devastated, burying them near the place where he had first seen them, where he felt they belonged. The Morrison family's reaction was complex and heartbreaking. Relief at finally having answers was mixed with horror at the truth and grief at losing the girls twice. Harold struggled with the knowledge that his own nephew had been responsible, while Martha found some peace in knowing that Emma and Lily had been cared for, even in captivity. As I closed the file on the Morrison twins case, I reflected on how wrong we had all been about what happened that summer day. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than we can imagine, and sometimes the people we're looking for are closer than we think, hidden in plain sight by those who believe they're acting out of love. The old corral still stands at the Morrison farm, but now it serves as a proper memorial to 2 little girls who chose to come home the only way they could, whose love for their family was so strong that they chose eternity over exile. Their story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, love finds a way to bring us home. To support the channel, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much.